For the past 10 years, I had been an office employee at a mid-sized local company. It wasn't the most glamorous job, but when I started, I was eager and full of ambition. I believed that if I worked hard and proved my worth, I would climb the corporate ladder. My mornings always started the same way, arriving early, grabbing a cup of coffee from the break room, and settling into my desk before the office filled with chatter. There was something comforting about the predictability of it all, even if deep down I longed for more. My role was officially that of an administrative assistant, but over time, my responsibilities had quietly expanded. I handled scheduling, answered inquiries, and took care of minor bookkeeping. But that was just the beginning. As the company grew, so did the demands placed on me. Whenever a new system needed implementing, I was the one who learned it first, so I could train others. When my colleagues struggled to meet deadlines, I volunteered to assist, even if it meant staying late. Without being asked, I found ways to improve efficiency, developing new spreadsheets, optimizing workflow, and ensuring that everything ran smoothly. I was always the one people came to when they needed something fixed, and I welcomed it. I thought of myself as indispensable, someone who kept the office running even when others didn't notice. I didn't mind the extra workload because in my mind, all of it was leading to something greater. A promotion, recognition, a reward for my unwavering dedication. But the years passed, and despite my hard work, my job title and salary remained the same. I watched as new hires, many of whom I had trained, moved up the ranks while I stayed in place. It stung, but I convinced myself that my time would come. I just had to keep pushing forward, keep proving myself, and eventually someone would recognize my value. Yet, deep down, a small seed of doubt began to grow. How much longer would I have to wait? And more importantly, was anyone even paying attention? As another year passed, I found myself working harder than ever, determined to prove that I was ready for the next step. I took on more projects, assisted my department head whenever they were overwhelmed, and even started mentoring newer employees. If a crisis arose, I was the first to offer a solution. If someone needed help, I was there before they even had to ask. But what started as enthusiasm slowly turned into expectation. The more I did, the more people relied on me. My workload doubled, yet my position remained unchanged. I worked long hours without complaint, thinking that surely someone in management would take notice. Surely they would reward my dedication. One day, I overheard a conversation between two senior managers in the break room. One of them mentioned how lucky the company was to have employees who were willing to go above and beyond without demanding anything in return. It took me a moment to realize that they were talking about me. A strange feeling settled in my stomach. Was that how they saw me? Someone who would work tirelessly without expecting recognition. Still, I told myself that promotions took time. I couldn't afford to be impatient. I continued pushing forward, handling every challenge thrown my way. But the doubt inside me grew stronger with each passing month. Then came the moment that finally made me question everything. One evening, after staying late to complete a last-minute project for my department head, I walked by his office and overheard him on the phone. "She's reliable, yes, but it's not like we need her for anything critical." "She's not management material." I froze. My heart pounded in my chest as I stood there trying to process his words. Not management material? After everything I had done? After every extra hour I had given? This was how they saw me. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering if I had spent the last decade chasing something that was never meant to be mine. Doubt weighed heavily on me in the days that followed. I tried to push it aside, telling myself that I had misheard or misinterpreted the conversation. But deep down, I knew the truth. I was never going to be promoted. A shift took place within me. I stopped volunteering for extra work. I no longer stayed late to finish tasks that weren't mine to begin with. I completed my assigned duties, nothing more. At first, I thought people would notice and ask what was wrong, but to my surprise, no one did. Meetings came and went, emails flooded my inbox, and deadlines loomed as usual. But something was different. I felt invisible. The company had become so used to me taking on extra work that when I stopped, it was as if I had faded into the background. The realization was painful, but it was also liberating. One afternoon, a junior colleague approached me, panic written all over her face. "Emma, I need your help. I don't know how to format these reports correctly, and they're due in an hour." Before, I would have dropped everything to help. This time, I simply smiled and said, "I'm sure you'll figure it out. Try looking at the old templates." She blinked, surprised by my response, but she nodded and walked away. And just like that, the cycle began to break. Without my constant oversight, inefficiencies began to pile up. Projects that once ran smoothly under my guidance became chaotic. Deadlines were missed, errors multiplied, and tensions in the office grew. I watched silently as the company slowly unraveled. Still, management did nothing. They carried on as if everything was fine. But I knew better, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel responsible for fixing it. Then, one morning, an email arrived in my inbox. Subject, urgent meeting. I walked into the conference room and immediately sensed the tension in the air. The company was struggling financially. Cost-cutting measures needed to be taken, and that meant layoffs. I listened as names were read aloud one by one. Then I heard mine. My time at the company was over. The first few days after being laid off were disorienting. I had spent so many years dedicating myself to my job that I wasn't sure who I was without it. The idea of job searching again felt overwhelming, but there was no other choice. I needed to move forward. At first, rejection emails stung. Despite my decade of experience, some companies dismissed me without a second glance. Others offered salaries that barely matched what I had been making before. For the first time, I realized how undervalued I had been all those years. Then, one morning, I received an email from a company I had applied to on a whim. They specialized in business efficiency consulting, helping companies optimize their operations. Ironically, it was the kind of work I had been doing unofficially for years. They wanted to schedule an interview. When I met with the hiring manager, I spoke about my experience, my skills, and all the ways I had improved my former company's processes. Unlike my old employers, they listened. They saw my value. A week later, I got the call. I had the job and the salary, nearly double what I had been making before. As I walked into my new office on my first day, I felt something I hadn't in years: appreciation. Finally, I was where I was meant to be. A few months later, I heard that my old company had shut down completely. I wasn't surprised. They had never valued the people who kept it running. I, on the other hand, had finally found a place that did.